Welcome in. I'm Tony Collins. 2013 has come to a close, and we've reached the point in college basketball season where non-conference play is ending and league play is beginning. So it's time now to check in with our resident bracketologist, Joe Lunardi, for another version of Bracketology. But before we bring in Joe, let's take a quick look at the top line of his latest bracket. The four #1 seeds are all still undefeated: Arizona, Syracuse, Wisconsin, and Ohio State. So now let's bring the one and only Joe with us. Joe, what has impressed you the most about these four teams?
Well, you said it. They're all undefeated, which, in this day and age, given the strength of the non-conference schedule for all of those teams, Arizona in particular and Wisconsin certainly hasn't ducked anybody, to be undefeated heading into league play is a milestone. And I would say that there really isn't a lot of question at this point over who the top four teams are in terms of profile. In order: Arizona, Syracuse, Ohio State, Wisconsin. Louisville has kind of taken itself out of the mix for the time being, losing at Kentucky and not really posting any other marquee wins. Louisville, the defending champs, of course, had been on the top line about a month ago. I would say next up, knocking at the door, if you will, would be Oklahoma State and Michigan State. And now when we get into league play and teams start going on the road, we could expect to see some movement among one or two of these spots as the weeks go on.
Now let's take a step back and look at conferences as a whole. Has there been a particular conference that has really overachieved so far this season?
I've been watching the Big 12 very closely. This is a league that has been dominated over the years by Kansas. Of course, Bill Self has actually won more conference championships than he's lost home games in his time at Kansas, which is a truly remarkable stat. Yet, I'm not sure that KU, even with their great young talent, is the best team in the Big 12 this year. Oklahoma State is excellent. Baylor's been very good. Iowa State's been terrific. So, when Kansas might be your second or third or fourth best team, you have a really good league. And in head-to-head competition against all other multi-bid conferences, the Big 12 has far and away the nation's top winning percentage in that category.
What about one that has underachieved?
I'd have to look a little bit at the ACC. I know that's heresy, at least in my part of the country. And while it's been very good, it hasn't been great as many of us expected. You've always got Duke and Carolina carrying the banner for the league, but both, particularly North Carolina, have been inconsistent. And it's been Syracuse, one of the newcomers, that's been the most highly rated of the ACC teams. Another newcomer, Pitt's been very good against a soft schedule. And Notre Dame, the third newcomer, frankly, has underachieved to this point. That's added to the ACC's woes. 6 teams in our current bracket, but one of them, Maryland, is only there as a placeholder because by rule we have to put the current league leader in the field, mimicking the committee's procedures, and Maryland at 1-0 is the quote-unquote league leader. But that won't hold, so we'll need somebody to jump up and grab a spot if the ACC is to get at least 6, and I'm not sure who that would be at this point. I don't think Maryland is good enough to earn an at-large bid. Maybe Clemson. And I guess the wild card here, the X factor, if you will, is Virginia. Very highly regarded at the start of the season, but has lost all of its up games and currently does not project to make the NCAA field.
Interesting. Now, Joe, one of the challenges that the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee faces is to compare teams without bias. So let's ignore the name of the front of the jersey and compare a couple of blind NCAA tournament resumes. Here we go. Team A has an 11-2 record, is ranked 36th in RPI, and is 1-1 against the top 50 teams. Now, Team B has gone 10-4 against a little bit of a weaker schedule and is 0-3 against the top 50. What do you see when you look at these resumes?
I guess normally in a blind resume exercise, we'd be making the case for the weaker looking team on paper, right? But the point of this today is to suggest that the RPI is relatively meaningless at this early stage of the season heading into conference play. Team A is Minnesota, and we've got them as one of the last 8 or so teams in the field. Team B, and this is the surprise, if you will, Indiana, #1 seed last year, the preseason #1 team in the country last year, and even losing Cody Zeller and Oladipo and some of the core of last year's great team. Nobody thought that Indiana would be struggling with this kind of a profile. I mean, the best game they played is Notre Dame, and they lost. and Notre Dame's been no great shake. So I guess the point of this exercise today is when you take the brand name away, Indiana, they're even further from the field than you might have thought. Most teams with this kind of numeric profile, we wouldn't even really be considering very strongly at this point. So the Hoosiers, especially having lost that first league game in overtime to Illinois the other night, have a ways to go if they're going to get back to the tournament.
Very well, moving on, it's time to answer some questions from our fans in Twitter, college basketball fans. First up, we have SEC fan who asks, where does Arkansas fall?
I think Arkansas, having gone 1-2 in Maui against a good field with a decent non-conference schedule, has an excellent chance to get back to the NCAA tournament this year. But they're really going to have a tough go in their first 6 league games. 4 of them are away, and the 2 home games are Kentucky and Florida. So the Hogs' goal here is not to get buried too far down the standings in the early part of the league season.
Next, we have Goat. He asks, what will Maryland have to do in conference to get it?
I think they're going to need at least 11 wins in the ACC after their weak non-conference performances, and I just don't think they have the talent to get there this year.
We have one more. Frank Urso asks, where would you have Illinois and tourney?
Illinois in the field, not as the last 4 in, so they're avoiding the Dayton play-in games in this bracket, and they've already gotten a nice league win at home. And of course, the Big Ten is very deep and very difficult. So anything 500 or better for the Illini is probably going to do it for them, given some of their non-league performances. A good win over Missouri and a good close loss at Oregon.
There you have it, folks. Joe Lunardi with what you need to know, the insight. Thank you as always. And to see Joe's full field of 68 teams, check out his latest bracket here on ESPN.com. For Joe Lunardi, I'm Tony Collins. Thanks for watching.